Should you train like your favorite athlete?
After my NFL career,
Madsen, inside the 15, inside the 10.
I opened up a strength and conditioning gym. I trained world champions, dozens of NFL players. I was training guys for the NFL Combine. This problem stems from, parents trying to think they know what's best for their kids, who they want to be a professional athlete someday, to now these parents are training themselves.
Having known what you know now, what would you have done differently whilst you were in the NFL?
So for me, the big ones.
I'm Ryan Stevens.
Dr. Taylor Waters.
I'm Ben Oliver.
Welcome to the Supra Human show, yeah?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Supra Human show with your hosts, Ben Oliver, Ryan Stevens, the Doc Taylor Waters, and the founder, Mr. John Madsen. So this will probably be quite a fun one, actually.
Yeah.
Should you train like your favorite athlete? I don't really have a favorite athlete, or because I got into bodybuilding at such a young age.
If you do, I hope they're short, pale, and bald.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're done
Train
for.
like your favorite bowling ball, and I've achieved it. But yeah, I mean, because I got into bodybuilding at such a young age, like not that I would call bodybuilders athletes, but I was already training like that so it wasn't too much of a kind of disconnect. But I'll go to you first, John.
Because you actually were an athlete.
Yeah, because out of all of us, you were an athlete. What was your experience like in terms of training programs, in college, in the NFL in particular? Were there any that you looked at and you were like, this is complete horseshit? And now when you look back, whereas now you're training for body composition as opposed to performance, what's the differences that, the main differences there now?
Yeah, man. Athletic training is really where I got my start. 2010, after my NFL career, I opened up a strength and conditioning gym where I trained world champions, dozens of NFL players. I was training guys for the NFL Combine. And I love training athletes for performance. However, it's a lot different than training a 45-year-old accountant to lose 50 pounds, right? And I love this topic because I also have got to play with Hall of Famers in the National Football League. I'll never forget, man. Like I remember getting out of college and when you play Division I football, like there's beasts all around you. Like the weight room's crazy. We'll get into some of that in a second. But when I got to Oakland and there was a level up from Division I football to the National Football League, I'm looking around the locker room and I'll never forget, like I'm think I'm pretty fast. That's what got me there in the first place. But we were doing conditioning, or we were training in the summer. And the strength coach was yelling out percentages he wanted us to sprint. So he's like 70%, 40 yards. And so I'm like, okay, just, 70% jog. And they'd be like 80%. So I kick it up a notch. I'm running with defensive ends that are 270 pounds that like have six packs, right? The biggest beasts on the planet. I'm like, oh, like I'm a wide receiver. I should be faster than a defensive end. And we're kicking it up to 90%. So I'm like, oh, I'm going 90. They must be going 100. Right. So we work up to all the way, almost an all-out sprint. And I realize in that moment, like, this is a different game. You have the biggest beast on planet Earth with the most superior genetics you've ever seen, with great training programs that's going to enhance them. But a lot of these guys, trained in ways that you would never think that they should train, and they still were superior athletes. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is like, oh, here's this NFL player and, here's his workout program. If I just do this, I'll look like that. And it's like completely not true and can absolutely diminish results for a person with not as good genetics, who's not at that level, who, you know what I mean? And so it's just an interesting thing seeing guys that you look up to look a certain way, perform a certain way. That doesn't mean that you're going to be doing the same training program.
It's like you don't choose the sport chooses you.
Yeah.
You ain't going to be a swimmer, Tace. You ain't going to be a Michael Phelps.
I can be. I'll just be a rubbish one.
I remember speaking to, so there's a Welsh athlete called Colin Jackson. He was an Olympic gold medalist hurdler. And he trained in the gym that me and Ryan used to work at. Awesome guy. And we would always ask him, like, when you were in your peak, Olympic training cycle, one of the fastest dudes on the planet, what was your training like? And he goes, my diet was coffee and jelly babies, like candy, to keep my weight down. And my weight training was power cleans and quarter squats. That's all he did because we didn't want to get too heavy. And he goes, my cleans were shit. He's like, I didn't know how to do a power clean. And like my quarter squats were like 1/8 squats. And then and his friend, another guy called Jamie Bolch, who was like a gold medalist Commonwealth hurdler, like equally just as rapid. And he leans in, he goes, you either got it or you don't. And that's what he said. And I was like, that's so true. And there were guys, you know, that would train at our university doing everything, you know, right. They'd be warming up, doing their dynamic stretches, you know, doing their power cleans, their perfectly meticulous program. And they would look at them and be like, they will never come close. Like, and it's like, I could rock up now and beat them. And I'm 40 plus years old, haven't ran in years. And it's like, and I'll smoke them. And it's kind of like, it's kind of sad because you're like, there's nothing you can do to like.
So like, as long as you work hard, you can get there.
Yeah.
When you're talking about elites in sport, there is a different level. Like sometimes like you think you're pretty good. You're like, I'm pretty strong. Like I can move pretty well. And then you bump into an elite and you're like, oh my God, there's the level, the gap between like someone who's good and then someone who is like elite is such a big gap. It's such a wide gap.
Christian Thibodeau said this, where he said, what you should look at is the lower levels of a sport. And if they have certain traits, then it's very likely that training like that sport, you're going to get those traits. Like if you look at the low levels of sprint cycling, they've all got massive legs. Like if you look at like the low levels of, I mean, even like swimming or something, it's like they're going to have that kind of like lean build and stuff. And so if you look at like the lower levels, you're like, yeah, like I'm probably going to get some of that. But like you look at like the low levels of CrossFit, like it looks like an average pub landlord, you know, whereas like you look at the top levels and you've got Rich Froning and stuff, and a few of them are jacked, some of them aren't.
Yeah.
But like that's the top level. But if you really bring it down, it's like there's no correlation, you know, with like physique when it comes to that.
CrossFit's the real classic one, isn't it? Where it's like people who come into the program with us sometimes say, oh, I really like CrossFit because I want to look like a CrossFitter.
Yeah.
And they're talking about like a Matt Fraser or a Rich Froning. And it's like, Matt Fraser would have looked like Matt Fraser if he played darts. Like he looks like that. That's what makes him good at CrossFit is because he's built like he is. He's not built like he is. Like he hasn't got a massive chest from doing like muscle ups on a set of rings or from doing burpees and handstand push-ups. Like he had a big chest. He's got a big chest, and then he's just also good at these other things. So it's important not to cross over. Like he looks like that because of the way he trains. No, he's able to do that because of the way he looks. Does that make sense?
A slight, not CrossFit, but bodybuilding. Do you know Phil Leaf's documentary? He was like Jack playing basketball.
Yeah.
And then he just decided
like
to
follow
bodybuild.
Phil Heath's arm workout, and it's like he's had 20-inch arms dribbling a basketball.
Yeah, he was
he's
literally
the last
jacked.
person you'd look at for advice for arm training.
You look at LeBron. I mean, you see pictures or Instagram. There was an Instagram video that came out of LeBron of him squatting, and you're just like, bro, like what the fuck was that? You know?
Yeah.
And LeBron is like. He's a specimen. Like he is freak. Like you take his shirt off, he's probably 6'9", 270 pounds and just like shredded. Lean and shredded.
Yep.
And it's like you put him on a squat and he looked like a fucking I don't even know what, right? Like Bambi on ice. It's like, bro, like has no one ever taught you how to do that the right way? You're one of the greatest images of athleticism anybody has ever seen, and this one movement is complete dog shit. It's crazy, and then you can just look like that, right? And so when I was playing in the NFL, I had this realization too, because I always look at myself as like this overachiever. Somehow I got there. I was very athletic, but I got to that level, and I'm looking around, and I'm like in the locker room, and dudes just have like fucking bricks for abs, dude. And you're just like, damn, like they must eat really good. And there was this one safety, and we back in the day, we'd always get in the bod pod, so that egg-shaped thing, right? And would give us how much body fat we had. And I remember like I just wanted to beat that thing. I wanted to be 8% body fat and the supreme athlete, and I'd always come in around like 12%. And there was this one safety, he gets in there every single time, dude. I watched this guy eat McDonald's breakfast every single day. Comes walking in almost late, throwing down McDonald's Egg McMuffins and hash browns, ate whatever. And he was literally 3%, 4% every single time in the damn thing, dude. And I'm like, I to your point, like I don't like using genetics as an excuse. But at an elite level, the genetics are just superior sometimes. What people shouldn't do though is take that, they're an accountant, they're 50 pounds overweight, and they're like, oh, my genetics suck. It's like, no, dude, your genetics are not the problem. You're just not going to be an NFL athlete.
Yeah. There's just such a big, but again, like the reason why people want to follow their favorite athletes is because of how they look. They're not even really like, they don't want to train like CrossFitters to perform like a CrossFit athlete.
No.
Is that they look at Rich Froning and he's the same height as them. He's 190 pounds and he's lean and he's jacked. But then equally, you look at the low levels of like physique competitors, they all look like that. And they only train 4 days a week for an hour. And it's like, cool, you can do Rich Froning's program. You need a barn gym. You need to be able to train 4 or 5 times a day, every single day. And then maybe you'll kind of get in shape if like, do you want to do that as a full-time job? Or you can look at the low levels of like physique guys and train 4 hours a week and watch your diet, and you'll probably look pretty good.
I don't want to completely shit on CrossFit, and that's not the point. But
We can. It's fine.
The funny part though is that you go in these boxes and you see all these guys who are middle-aged and they're putting on the fucking knee sleeves, right?
And the wrist,
and they're getting all ready,
Yeah.
and they're doing these movements that look like dog shit. They're getting hurt, and they do this, and they still look in the mirror week after week, and there's no improvement. They're doing CrossFit, them following it up with whatever they eat that they think is healthy, that is not getting them closer to the goal, and then B, they just are doing a lot of work in there and doing it not efficiently. And it's like, at the end of the day, you want to look like this. You don't have to do all that to get that look if you can just be efficient with your food and an actual training program that's going to help you progress, not get injured, and is focused and tailored to you. But you go in those gyms and it's full of 30 people at a time doing Olympic lifts. You got housewife doing Olympic lifts, 45-year-old accountant doing Olympic lifts, and you're like, bro, like you don't need to do that, and it's just kind of unnecessary. And so there's a lot of great CrossFit coaches that can take a person who wants to train like that, genuinely enjoys it, wants to progress and get better, and take the coaching cues and eat a certain way, and they obviously can get results. But for the majority of people, they want to look a certain way, and they just associate the top level CrossFit athletes as he trains like that, I should train like that, and I'll look like that. And it's just flawed thinking.
Olympic weightlifting is one of the biggest ones where, when one, it's a sport in and of itself. It's not just something that people throw on top. I mean, people try to, and then, technique sucks. Or
The aesthetic benefits of an Olympic
it's
lift,
so minuscule.
It's zero.
But this is the thing, though, is they'll look at guys like Rich Froning, and then also Dmitry Klokov, the Russian weightlifter. He had like a bit of a surge where he was doing these just absurd feats of strength on Instagram. He would do it was like 200 kilos, 445, and he would do like a power clean, then into a clean, then he'd do like a paused front squat, then he'd push press it over his head, and then split jerk it all in one hit. So then everyone was like, oh, I'm going to do complexes and I'll be as jacked as Dmitry Klokov. But then if you look at the guys that beat Dmitry at the Olympics, they look like they've never lifted a weight in their life. They've got skinny arms, man tits, and just thick legs. And they'll do like 240 kilos above their head. And it's like, there's no correlation there other than your legs might get a little bit bigger.
Your legs
but like your upper body is going to look shambles. It's just, he's just a big old Russian bear. Like he's just born like that.
I think if I had to pick one exercise for like the worst risk to reward ratio for like our clients, Olympic lifts.
Imagine the 45-year-old accountant.
Why are you doing snatches?
Right?
Like, why are you doing snatches?
Especially doing snatches for like sets of 25.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, that's the last thing you need.
They can't even snatch air. They're putting a bar in their hands.
If you just get them to put their arms with their head, they're like, well, my left one doesn't really go up. It's like, cool, we're going to load that up and force it to go back there. And, we'll
And
see
you're
how
going
we
to
do.
catch it with your ass on the floor.
But like, a lot of our clients, they'll come into like Supra Human and they'll be like, I feel like I should be doing more. And it's like, why? You're dropping like 2 pounds a week.
Yeah.
And you're looking better and you're getting stronger. Like, what is it that you actually want?
Yeah.
And it's because of their previous experiences where they've been doing stuff like burpees for like an hour or whatever it is. And they come in and it's like, well, you haven't got the result yet. And it's like, yeah, but I'm only training 3-4 days a week for like an hour and doing like 10,000 steps. And it's like, yeah, and you're getting the result that you want. What are you complaining about? Use that time to go and do other stuff. You know?
When I had the strength and conditioning gym and I would train high school athletes, a lot of times these dads would come in and they're like, I want you to kill him. You know, it's like they want they wanted their kids to leave that place exhausted and borderline dead. And I'd have to explain over and over. I'm like, do you want them to jump higher, run faster, and be a better athlete? Or do you want me to put them on the prowler for 2 minutes and make them throw up? Because I can make anybody throw up in 2 minutes or less. And if you think that that is good training, then you should probably go somewhere else, because it's my job to make them jump higher, run faster, and become a better athlete. And so I think that this problem stems from, you know, parents trying to think they know what's best for their kids, who they want to be a professional athlete someday, to now these parents are training themselves and they're misguided. And it's just like, people, as simple as it is, lose sight of the result that they want and then the easiest way to get there. To me, like, that's how I wanted to build this training program. I want to get the result as easy as possible. That doesn't mean I'm lazy. That means I'm smart, right? In my opinion. And some people, they want to make it more difficult than it needs to be. I see that in business too. It's like, are you trying to make it more difficult for yourself to succeed? Or why not just take the straight line path to success? Of course, it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard, and, you know, it's going to take consistency and perseverance and all that stuff. But there is a straighter line to the goal than these people just like, they just don't know sometimes.
Yeah. I love what you say, John. It's like, do what it takes, nothing more, nothing less. A lot of people are doing a lot more and more of the wrong stuff.
I love that. It takes what it takes, but not more than that, right? It's like, it's going to take this, do that, and it's not that complicated, and do it for 10 years and watch yourself go from bottom 10% in fitness to top 3%. If you do what we teach here for 5 years, you'll be in the top 3% of anybody who does fitness. 5 years, right? 5 years. And then you carry those habits for 10, all of a sudden you're probably in the top 1 or 2% in the whole world of the physique you actually want and the level of conditioning and all the health benefits that go with that. And most people just get bored, right? They quit in the middle, or they think they should be doing things that don't necessarily get them the result, and then they just waste a bunch of time.
So if you could go back to when you were training like an athlete, like in the NFL, having known what you know now in terms of training and nutrition and things, what would you have done differently? Whilst you were in the NFL.
So for me, the big one's nutrition. A lot of people think that, like, I played from 2006 to 2009. That's not that long ago. And I thought that, you know, NFL teams are going to have dietitians and nutritionists on staff, and they're going to have the best food. When I was playing in Oakland, it was probably the worst example of any of the teams. But I was just joking with one of my former teammates. They would roll a cart in for lunch and it would be fucking grilled cheese sandwiches. It's like, we're the pinnacle of elite athlete, and they would not invest into great food. When I got to Cleveland, they had a cafeteria that was much more done up, and there was other organizations that did put more emphasis than we did. But there was not a lot of help when it came to nutrition. It was like, I was always a person that was a little bit underweight. So it was like, we'll just eat more food. It was like, okay, well, specifically what, how, like, can you lay it out for me? And their idea was just to slam metric shakes, right? It's like, just drink protein shakes. It's like, I should have been smarter and sought help outside, but I just, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I loved training, but the nutrition piece, like, I never really learned. And so I think that alone can be such an advantage to guys like myself who of course I had greater genetics than most, but to bridge that gap and to get everything out of my potential, that was a piece that could have taken me a little bit farther if I would have known what I know now. And so we've done it with some of our clientele in the past have been NFL guys who've sought our consulting because they realized that they weren't getting what they needed from the NFL squad. And that's an advantage for athletes who don't have that crazy top 0.01% genetics where they can eat McDonald's and come in at 3% body fat. That wasn't me. That's some of those guys. But to close that gap, I could have done a lot better than I did. I just didn't know.
Did you, when you did train, did you warm up? Like when you worked out and stuff, or was it?
Yeah.
Because again, like, I know guys that are like you're saying, like, just the freaks of nature, where it's like, you know, they move the arms, 4 plates on the bar, just boom, like no warm up, and, you know, probably in their 40s, 50s, they start to have shoulder surgeries and things. And at the time, it's like you're made of, rubber. But then as you get older, the lower back isn't what it used to be and things like that. Like, did you take that stuff seriously, or were you kind of like, I'm good?
I was dumb, bro. I had a guy who was a rookie with me, and this dude, bro, like I remember, like, you're a rookie, you don't know anybody, you have guys coming from different colleges, you're all trying to make the team, and so like the rookies kind of like hung out together, and there was a group of undrafted rookies that were kind of the outsiders. It's like we had temporary lockers because it's like, you guys aren't going to last, like you're going to be gone in a day type thing. So we kind of hung together. There was like a group of 5 or 6 of us, and so we were staying at the Hilton through the whole off season. They just put us up, and so we'd get bored. We're like, let's watch movies. 7 p.m. every single night. Didn't matter what was going on. This motherfucker would bring out his stretch things and stretch for an hour, and I'm just like, who does that? It's so weird, It's like such a weird thing to do. And so I used to make fun of him all the time. It's like, bro, and he was just like, that was his routine. He's one of those guys. For me, I remember being a rookie, and we're at training camp, and the veterans in the locker room were like 28, 29, 30, and they're like rubbing icy hot on them, and it's like they're old men. It's like, bro, you're so fucking old. I'm 23 years old. Anyone over 30 in the locker room seems to be ancient, and they're like, hey, Madsen, you want to go stretch early? And I'm like, bro, have you ever seen a cheetah stretch? I'm fucking good, bro. Like, I'm going to sit here, and I'm not going to go out there until I have to go out there, right? And so these guys, some of the guys would be out there for an hour before stretching and warming up before the practice even started. And I was one of those idiots that just like, I roll out, the whistle blows, like I'm just doing the thing. And so looking back, I just shake my head at some of how I treated being a professional athlete. I'm like, damn, if I just would have focused a little bit more and showed up like a pro every day, not just when I felt like it, I probably would have, could have had a longer career than 3 years in the league.
Yeah. Taylor, because you were, not many people know this, but you were a skier back in the day.
Yeah.
Did you do any training outside of skiing for that?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I don't even know what the resistance training would be like for a downhill skier, but was there anything like, did you have any idols in that era?
So it's funny. So I've always, like, how I got into bodybuilding was because when I was younger, I came from more of a normal sporting background, but I was always fascinated with athletes who were in shape. Like, all my favorite athletes were the ones who were jacked. And there was a skier, I remember he was a good slalom guy. He was about my height, like 5'9", and he had these thick ass quads on him, like big dense quads. But then when I was skiing, so when I was training properly, so I'm still only like 14, 15, 16, 17, is like all lower body stuff. So it would be like heavy squatting, heavy front squatting, and then a lot of like plyo, so like box jumps and stairs and things. Some sprints, some hill sprints. So basically no upper body work at all. The upper body work was just like, because I wanted to do some arms. But in terms of the actual skiing stuff, we were lifting like 2-3 days a week. Normally be like some sort of squat, some sort of deadlift, a jump, and then like a leg extension or something like that. But then what happened was, when I was going in like bodybuilding and things, my quads have always been big. I've always had these thick quads, but it was because when I was younger, I was training. Was it helping my skiing? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I was just lifting a lot of lower body weights, but then my lower body has always been really dominant. So it all came from that, just focusing on lower body without even knowing what I'm doing. But I guess it pays off in the long run. Then you got a thick ass set of quads.
And then you played like soccer or football for a while, and was it judo or something that you did as well?
Yeah, I played snooker as well. Mark Williams is my.
We're not even going to go into the strength and conditioning requirements for snooker. Snooker's like billiards, it's like a pub game.
He was a local champion. That's my favorite athlete.
S&C for that. You imagine him in the gym just lining up a cable pulley, just like working on my
shoulder
working
flexibility.
On my force. Yeah.
He's actually shit hot as well.
Oh yeah,
he's actually really good.
One of the champs. But so I mean, did you do any sport specific training for those? Because I know you were powerlifting, and it probably just had pretty good carryover to that stuff.
That's it. I was just a powerlifter, so I was actually brought into powerlifting to take me off the streets. It's like there's a local powerlifting coach from like in our local village, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to come up and give it a go?" And it was like a shed, and all it had in there was a makeshift squat rack, a bench press, and a set of drums. And like this was nothing to do with like improving my football or judo performance. I didn't know anything different. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So I'd go up there, I'll never forget it. I was squatting, benching, and in between my sets, he would make me play the drums. And he literally goes to me, he goes, "You're not going to be a drummer. I'm better off squatting and benching." So, and like for a couple of years then, I would just squat, bench, deadlift, and I got pretty strong and entered a few competitions, and that's how it happened. But in terms of, like you said, it probably had a decent carryover to judo at least, just from like strength standpoint. Football, not sure so much, like one set of squats, one RM.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the thing guys don't realize as well, like even guys that will come into our program where they say like, I want to get back to, sprints and, functional fitness kind of stuff, but you don't realize the amount of preparation needed to be able to full out sprint and not injure yourself.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it for a long period of time, it's like you're going to be doing like drills for the next year, and then we're going to slowly build up to like a sprint. But if I tried sprinting now, something's going to pop because I haven't done it for so long.
Tell us a story, Ben.
It would it would look slow.
It happens. So like because I used to sprint and obviously played basketball and stuff, and it was like quite springy.
That's where those hammies came from.
Yeah, that's where they come
Thick
from.
hams.
But
I can't even imagine him sprinting.
not
not anymore. No, but no, it's like a freight train coming down. But
That's slow ass.
the engine's not on. It's just rolling down a hill. But one of my friends was a professional rugby player, and I hadn't done anything like sport related for a couple years then, but I was just training in the gym and getting stronger and like more powerlifting. And he was like, "Well, I'm going to go do some sprints down the track if you fancy joining me." And I was like, "Oh, I haven't done it for a while. Let's see if I got some gas in the tank." So I took my spikes like with me, and I was like, "You know what? I'm going to warm up because I'm not an idiot, and I'm not going to go all out because I will pull something." Spent about 40 minutes warming up, like everything, feeling really good. And because like my
looking terrible.
Someone's
on the sidelines.
I was looking good, like, but my relative like body weight strength was really good. I squat like 2.4 times my body weight or something. So like you're pretty explosive. And I was like, right, I'm going to start sprinting 30%, 40%, 50%. And I was like, you know what, I think I'm good. And then the fucker was like, "I don't think you're that quick. Like, I don't think you've got me." And I was like, "I've definitely got you." Go all out on the last sprint. It felt like a dog bit the back of my leg. And I pulled up and he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I've just tore my hamstring." And I got in the car like the next day and I went on vacation with the family the week after. And I got out of the pool and my brother goes, "What the fuck is that on your leg?" And I turn around and my whole leg was just black. And I was just like, "Oh God." And like it's never been the same since. But
I remember him coming to the gym the next day, just like a black hamstring. I was just like, "Oh my God."
But it's like again, if I have clients come in and they're like, "Oh, I want to get back to being doing sprints and things," my first question is, why? Like, is it because you've seen a sprinter look jacked doing sprints, or is it that you want to be able to sprint because your kid sprints or whatever it is? And if that's the case, then it's like, cool, we need to do this preparation phase. But a lot of times, like, people want to do the functional stuff because they see some jack guy on Instagram throwing a med ball around. It's like, that's how he got those abs. And it's like, he hasn't done that either. He's doing a photo shoot and they've just thrown him a ball being like, "Chuck that up." And so I think what people's idea of like, there were like you were saying, like on like Olympic lifts, the return on investment for those movements from a physique standpoint is so much lower than what people think. It's just the guys have already got it and they just happen to be throwing a ball around or whatever it is. But like when you look at the things that move the needle the most from a physique standpoint, it is that typical bodybuilding kind of movement patterns that are very safe, machine-based, cable-based, that you can overload. The skill requirement is very low, and the injury risk is very low. And it's like, and if you can do those, then physique-wise, it's going to be way better than, bouncing around on Bosu balls and, trying to pretend like you're an athlete like in your 20s.
Go on.
I was gonna say, what's interesting about like sprinting and like keeping that ultimate athleticism for me, I was done at 27 years old, but then I went right into training these athletes. And so I would race them. And from 27 to 30, I still remember like doing 10-yard sprints or doing hill sprints and taking them out and showing them that I was a champ, right? And I would compete. And there was a point though, whether I got injured or something happened and I stopped doing that, it's like, I don't think I've sprinted in the last 10 years. It stopped at a certain point.
Yeah.
And the most or closest I've ever got to an all-out sprint might be like 75%. And I know if I were to sprint, it would end badly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you keep doing it and you never stop, we've seen athletes in America that are 40 years old playing, not a lot of times, but there's 40-year-olds that will still play in the National Football League. LeBron James is 39 or 40 years old. It's like, if he never stops, you can go and there's diminishing athleticism compared to when he was 25.
One of our coaches, David, he's masters sprinter, like 100-meter sprinter, and he's in his 40s. You know, and it's like he's very, very fast, but he's never stopped.
Yeah, but you just can't stop.
Yeah,
my point is like you can't stop.
You're done.
Yeah.
Mate, have you ever been like, again, quite a good athlete when I was growing up, and then you're walking down the street and you'll see like there'll be a sign.
I could jump and touch that.
Oh, jump that. And you're like, I can jump that. And you jump and you're like, as you land, like stiff leg, you're in like your head, you're like, that was the least athletic thing I've ever. It just felt way off the mark.
I'll never forget, dude. Like I for whatever reason, like I can sell, dude. I can sell friends on doing dumbass shit. I remember being in like a room like this in the ceiling, right? And I could jump. I'm like, bro, can you hit your head on the ceiling, right? And I remember like a high school friend of mine, he played basketball, and in his head, he thought he could still jump, but I'm seeing his body and it's completely let himself go, right? And I'm like, see, I bet you $100 you can't hit your head on that ceiling. And I can't remember how high the ceiling is. I could easily do it. And he's jumping and he's straining his neck. And he does it like 10 times, dude. And he's getting like this close, and we're just rolling, dude. We're laughing so hard. Finally, he quits. He has sweat dripping down his face, and it's just like, when you lose it, you lose it. And I think that in your head, you think you still have it far longer than you actually do. Yeah. And it's like that athleticism goes if you don't keep up with it.
It's a horrible reality check, isn't it?
Yeah. Nothing's worse.
You feel old. Yeah. You just feel really old.
Let me ask you this though. As far as like I think that my training history was a great progression because I got into it early, and the first iteration of that training was like, my dad had like the Body for Life program. And so for a couple weeks, like he was helping me until he got with that trainer guy who was a badass strength coach. From there, it was hang cleans, deadlifts, squats, bench press, over and over and over again, just so it's like a steady diet of strength-based stuff, right? And then from there, when I got to play Division I football, the weight room's like, it's like a hybrid. Most, especially back then, it's like the strength coach is the enforcer of the team. He's the disciplinarian. He is responsible for the mental toughness of the team. And so the weight room is like, it's crazy. When like I got brought up in this crazy environment where they would actually chain the doors shut. And like we had a day called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not lying. And so they would play Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the movie, and it's just like this heavy metal going nuts, dude. And there was this little hallway because the whole football team can't lift at once. So we'd be split up in groups according to position. And so we show up for our time, but the doors all chained and they blocked out the window so we can't see in the weight room. And we just hear like coaches going fucking ape shit, guys screaming. And I'm just sitting in like the anxiety of like what we were about to get into was great. We're just like, fuck, dude. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. We haven't even started yet. And so they'd open the doors when the training session was done. These dudes would come out, sweat just through their shirts, just exhausted, and they're just giving you the shake head like you're fucked, we're going in, right? So then we'd go in, and bro, like we were like our form was not great. Looking back, like we were like I hang cleaned 340 pounds at a certain point in college, right? I was 220 pounds. That's quite a bit of weight for a hang clean.
Yeah.
To this day, like I tell you guys when you program my workouts, I'm like, you don't really need to program anything for traps. I don't need to do any shrugs. Like that shit is not going away because I spent 7 years of my life like going through the gauntlet of Oli pulls, and whether the form was great or not, it was way heavy and it was repetitive and it was consistent. So I went through like that mental toughness building and strength building where they didn't care if they killed you. They just wanted you mentally tough. And then I graduated to the NFL where all of a sudden it was completely different. Now the strength coach's job was by all means, do not injure the product that needs to play or their ass would be fired. So it went from like crazy training to the softest training I ever did, where I would literally work out and be like, dude, I got to do some extra stuff. Like, is that it? Which was complete difference from the college days. But having said that, like it was that heavy strength based Olympic style training for athletes, which then later on, now I'm 40, and it's like, now it's a lot more bodybuilding stuff. I was telling you, I would never really consider to do, hamstring curls before the main lift if I was training an athlete. But at 42 years old, it's like, I got to loosen up and get a little pump. And I want to actually pre-fatigue a little bit so that I'm not putting myself in danger. And now that style of training is like stacking on to a foundation that was built. I think the hard part for some of our clients is they've never built that foundation and they're 45 years old.
Yep.
And so they want to get shredded or look like an athlete. And the first thing that we have to do is strip all the body fat down. And they get to a point where they just look skinny as fuck because, they don't have substance under there. Where if we get an athlete that went to college and played Division I football, he could be 50 pounds overweight. We strip him down and he looks like he's already sculpted, right? Yeah. Where these people, if they don't build that foundation, I think the hard part is like, now they start their training history. We get them down and they have to do all the work at an age now that is 45 or 50. And it's not necessarily smart to go back and build that foundation like I got to do when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. So in your guys' opinion, how do you take a guy who doesn't have the foundation built like that, an athletic background, wants to look a certain way, and he's starting at 45 years old and he's got to lose 50 pounds and wants to be shredded? Lay out what that looks like. And I don't like however long you think it takes, take us through that.
So one of the first things that we ask, clients is their training experience. Have they got any experience with free weights, barbells, dumbbells, that kind of stuff? Because as you mentioned, we've all had a strength training background. I started with a rugby coach, and I remember doing box squats one day, and he kicked the box out from under me. And he goes, "Don't do that in my shit, like in my fucking gym." He's like, "You go ass to grass every time." And so I had like a really good foundation before I even did a leg extension. I was squatting nearly close to double body weight, and I just didn't give a shit. I was like, I just want to be strong. But then obviously, if you're 45, you're probably never going to squat double body weight if you've never put a bar on your back. Like the bar's going to hurt your back, like because you just haven't got the base. So I would look at, I still emphasize strength, but I'm going to use much safer, more stable movements, because at the end of the day, like they're not training. They don't need maximum stability from like a back squat or a bench press or like a dumbbell press standpoint. We could overload a chest press, but we might still go heavy and say, we're going to do like 5 sets of 5 or like 5 sets of 8 or like something heavy for them. But it's just not going to be those compound lifts where the injury risk is a bit higher and you need the skill. Because it's like, if someone's, say they want to do it in 6 months, why am I going to waste 3 of those months just getting them to the point that they can do a good squat, when I could just say, we're going to jump on the leg press, we're going to hammer leg extensions, leg curls, stress the shit out of your muscles, but we're going to learn how to do those in about 2 weeks. And so if you've got a longer time frame, then I could say, yeah, we can look at like squat movement patterns, hip hinges and things. But when you're on like a deadline, I'm going to think of the things which are like the lowest skill requirement that I can maximally push them in a safe way that they have access to, that I can do as frequently as possible. I think you had a...
We also, can I just add to that? Because we also have to think as well, you were doing those sorts of movements because you was an athlete too. Like you wanted to be better at football, and things like Olympic lifts and squats, they do have some carryover. If we have like a 45-year-old that comes in and wants to improve their body composition, we can build their base in a way that we can stimulate that muscle with much more friendlier exercises. So for example, we may put them on a leg press to build their quads versus a back squat. Like you can teach a leg press in like a week or even one session. So we would still build their base, but in a way which is more like joint-friendly exercise is the way I would put it. Like if we give them a back squat, some of our clients, they'd be injured and then they'd be out of the game. And
you're months out and you're not actually making any progress in that time.
They also have kind of like no mind-muscle connection. And I've completely changed my view on this, because I used to always be compound movements, and then when you have a good strength base, then you go into your isolations, you earn the right to do your bicep curls and push downs and things. But I would almost not do it the other way, but I would incorporate those exercises right from the get-go, because you learn what it feels like to recruit your quad. You learn what it feels like when your bicep is hurting, when your triceps hurting. And so then when you go to your compound lifts, if I'm trying to teach them, I'm like, you should feel that in your quads. They know what that feels like because they've done a leg extension or something. Whereas when you're just trying to teach a squat, like I take it for granted sometimes where, like, you know, you give someone a dumbbell and I'm like, you're not even fucking holding it right. And it's like, let alone going down, it's like you're cupping it in the wrong way. Like, and I like, you almost have to regress it so much that it's like, Jesus Christ, like, we're going to be spending so long doing this. Like, just go sit on the leg extension. We're going to do some reps. Like, but it, you know, if their goal is to get back to athleticism and they want to learn that stuff, then even then I'm going to build the strength with machines and then progress, you know, to those movement patterns, because if I put them on a bench, they're probably just going to injure their shoulder straight away.
Yeah.
If we do chest press, pec deck, you know, some rows, some lateral raises on a machine or something, some push downs, some curls, at least they're strengthening like the tendons, ligaments, and muscles around those areas. That then when they take a bar out, they're going to be pretty stable anyway. But like you go straight to like a barbell, like, and this is the old school guys like Ripto, and they'll be like, you know, 5x5 back squat. That's how you get strong. It's like, I'm not putting a 50-year-old dude on a barbell back squat. They probably can't even get their arms back.
Yeah.
So
Ankle mobility, dog shit.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, it's like a classic leg day prescription. It'd be like hamstring curls, then leg extensions, then onto like your compound movement, like a leg press. So they're pre-fatigued, so the weight is less on the more compound movement, less injury risk.
Yep.
You mentioned about timeline. You know, again, if you got a guy who's former athlete, but like, because some guys, they lift weights, they just get fat over time. And one of the good things about that is they usually get pretty jacked.
Right.
Yeah.
But then when you've got someone who hasn't even got that base, you're talking, you know, we always say the first year for a lot of guys is just sorting out the fat loss issue. Whether that's in one big phase or several shorter phases, first year is just, let's just get all the fat off. So you've mastered the skills of like fat loss, and then you're lean as to where now we can see what the base
what
looks
you're
like, and
working
now
with.
we can build from here. Then you're talking, you know, several, you know, what's the least amount of time you'd like to spend in a muscle building phase in an ideal position? 16 weeks?
Yeah.
4 months?
Ideally, as
Talking
long as possible. Once you're lean enough.
several 4-month blocks. So now you're easily talking 2 years, easy. So then, you know, when you factor in things like diet breaks, when you factor in things like Thanksgiving, you factor in Christmas, you factor in vacations with the family, you're easily looking at 3 years. If you want to go from someone who is, you know, has no muscle and a decent amount of body fat to go, and your skills in terms of training and nutrition are low, 3 years is almost like minimum. Minimum time you're gonna need.
I like our top program, the CEO program, right, where they get the medical protocol and, you know, the blood work and all that stuff. I love seeing the transformation, because we're getting these guys who, for the most part, they don't have extensive. Some do, obviously, but I think generally speaking, people don't have extensive training history. So we see this process play out where, to your point, the first year we're just taking them down, getting them to the point where we can see what they're working with, and then when they stick with it and they build through year 2, it's like all of a sudden they start showing up, and it's like they have to go through 2 wardrobe changes. It's like they get down and they're like, oh, nothing fits. And then on the way back up, though, their physique starts to get to where they want it to.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's when you see that person start walking into a room. And unfortunately, a 6-week program or a 16-week program or a 6-month program, or even a year, for some of you watching and listening, if you haven't been an athlete before and you don't have extensive training history, you're not going to get the look you really want unless you put in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The good news is like, if we can help you fall in love with it and you start seeing result, you can do it the way that we're going to teach you for the rest of your life, as opposed to some of the ways other people do it, and they're constantly in and out of rehab because they keep getting hurt.
I think the amount of results that you can achieve in like a 3 to 5 year period are insane.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the guys that come in where, you know, maybe they're like 170 pounds, really they're 150 pounds, but they want to be a lean 190, you almost have to set the expectation of like, this ain't going to happen in a year. It's like and the sad thing that you have to accept is you haven't got the decade of lifting, like maybe some of the transformations that we post have got. And so it's like the price you're going to have to pay is you're starting from a blank slate. You know, we could not lift for 10 years and still be more jacked than some guys out there, because we've done it for 15 years already. Like there's a certain point of like muscles, tendons and things, they're not going anywhere. You go into the gym for 3 weeks and you're back. Whereas the guys that have never done it, it's like, dude, you're starting from like what a 16-year-old kid is starting from. But that's not to say, like, the cool thing about it though is that you're about to experience newbie gains, which is like we hit those when we were 15 and we never get them back. Like, but you're going to get your newbie gains with someone that knows what the fuck they're doing, that we're going to milk it for all it's worth. Whereas most of us, we kind of get our newbie gains through like just training hard, but doing dumb shit. And it's like, we just go hard. But it's like, if you do it with biohacks, the right nutrition, the right training program and progression, like the difference that you could make in 2 years would be fucking crazy. But it's just like, it ain't gonna happen in 6 months.
And
go on.
I was going to say, and all these clients that we speak to as well, they've been trying for like 10 years to get the results. I'm saying I'm going to get you there in 2 years. Like, what a return on investment that is. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Like, 3 years sounds a long time when you've been doing these silly 6-week programs. But then if we tell, oh, well, I've been doing this for 16 years. So it's like, actually 3 years is a real fast track when you look at how long I've been doing it for and how much time that I wasted. So it's like, when you put it into perspective, 3 years is literally nothing.
and to John's point as well, we're going to teach you how to sustain that for yourself for the rest of your life.
It makes me laugh though, because like even now, like and like, obviously our clients don't mean anything by it, but like even like the CEO did, they'll be like, oh, you know, like, well, you know, how much do you think I want to weigh? Like, I don't want to look like you. And it's like, bro, like I've been a meathead for like nearly 2 decades.
You're like, don't worry,
you ain't ever gonna look like me. It's like,
whether you wake up like, oh, I've done it again, I'm jacked as fuck.
But it's almost like a lot of times people don't understand like the time that a lot of people have, like your favorite guys that you look up to have been doing it since they were 16. And so again, if you said 15 years, you know, you'll be doing it as well. But it's like, they don't want that. They want it in the short space. But it's one of the like the best gifts that we've all had is we got into it at a young age, and it's like that foundation. Nothing replaces that. Like you know, we can do a phenomenal job, but it's still, you're still working behind the guy that, like, even if they worked out from 16 to 25 and then they didn't do anything until they're 40, they built the base. And so like you said, you strip the 50 pounds off, there's some biceps, there's some chest, there's some traps because they've done it. But when you're just building from a blank slate, it's like you have your work cut out for you.
Grant's a good example, right? Like Grant's a good example because he played Division II football. He was an athlete his whole life. He stopped training. He said that, you know, as he got to the point where he was drinking a 6-pack every night and he had a business and fell out of love with the training aspect. He was doing stuff like 5K races, believe it or not. He was showing me like him doing, you know, that type of stuff.
Veins coming out of his head.
But he got to the point when he got to Supra and he was like, his before picture is just kind of this pudgy, you know, pudgy dude that you couldn't, by looking at that picture, you still couldn't tell that he had a very good athletic background. But as we started to strip him down, we got to a point where he was, you know, he was ripped. We got him all the way down. He essentially went from like 205 to 159, which is a huge swing, right? Over a year period. And then he started to really focus on his training. He got on a little test in like year 3, and all of a sudden you guys saw what the final product was at the photo shoot. And it's like, this dude is just comes in there just stacked. He blew everybody away. And that was a 4-year cycle of the first year, just we're stripping him all the way down. He had substance because he was an athlete, but then he took it serious, really dialed in his training and focused on getting stronger. And then the end product 4 years later is like, yeah, dude, like he could have been on Muscle in Fitness magazine. Veins just popping out of his bicep. Like it was crazy. And so I think that's a real good example of like a timeline where another guy was one of our coaches, Shane Till, had a 5-year transformation, which he didn't have the athletic background like Grant,
nothing,
right? And he came from a way worse shape in the beginning, and he came out to the photo shoot and had veins coming out of his abs.
He looked great.
He looked great. And so I love those examples for general pop because it's like, what's actually possible? You know, like if they aren't coming from a crazy athletic background, there's still hope. They just have to start thinking about they're at year 0 and they're going to have to build that compound interest that we've all built since we were 16, right? It works like money. It's like we have an ability to do things in a way now because we have 16, 25 years, you know, however long, 20 years of experience in training this way. It's compound interest, right? It gets easier. And so some of these people they have to start at 40 or they have to start at 45. Good news. You can do it for the rest of your life, and think about 10 years is going to happen anyways. You start at 45, at 55, people are going to look at you like, holy fuck, you're a grandpa probably, and you look incredible. I mean, time's going to go anyway. So why not do it? And then also the health benefits that come with that, we haven't even spoken about. It's like, yeah, the 6-pack's cool, but think about ripping 50 pounds off in a 10-year period and staying, in a leanness that's fairly healthy. Everything is gonna benefit from that. So you might as well start.
Yeah.
That's what we were chatting about earlier, wasn't it? Just to end on this, is the getting in shape is what we like promote. It's like, oh, you get the abs, you get the rig, then all the benefits that you get on top of that, like the confidence, like the relationship benefits, like, all this stuff that goes along with it, the health benefits. Oh, my blood work looks great. My cholesterol is back in range. My blood pressure's on. I'm off medication. It's like, yeah, all that goes along with it. We just don't talk about that as much, but those are all the other benefits that go along with getting in shape as well.
Yeah. So I think unanimously, you probably should not train like your favorite athlete. Starting with a foundation of strength definitely helps, but I think beyond that, look at kind of why you want to train like an athlete and what is your actual goal, and then I think speak to a coach, that can get you there, and that's going to be the fastest way to even build some athleticism if you want it, but you're going to do it in a way that is going to allow you to not rip your hamstring off,
And we didn't even talk about this too. It's like, well, professional athletes are getting paid to be professional athletes. Their whole life is set up for them to train and eat and perform on the field. Business guy making millions of dollars probably aren't getting paid to go play on Sundays. I'm pretty sure you have kids to take to sports practice. You have 50 employees to make sure that they have food on their tables. You probably shouldn't set your life up like a professional athlete, because the life that you have now will fall apart if you do that. So from a timing aspect and efficiency, it's just dumb, right?
Yep.
Like what we can do is customize a plan that fits your lifestyle, that's not going to take away from being dad, not going to take away from the business and all of that stuff, and get a result in a much more efficient way. That's the goal.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, and we'll catch you next time.
That was good. Awesome.
If you love this show, please like, share, and leave us a 5-star review so that we can help more people. I'm John Madsen, Supra Human CEO, reminding you to always go get what's yours.